The battle lasted 14 hours. When the electromagnetic pulses finally faded and space cleared, the Crethean fleet was broken. Over 60 ships destroyed, 20 more crippled and drifting. The survivors fled back into hyperspace, leaving behind their dead and their arrogance. The Indomitable had lost 4 escort ships and its hull bore new scars, but it remained. Humanity remained. Jiwan walked through the corridors in a daze. Around her, exhausted crew members celebrated. Humans hugged each other, cried, laughed. Some sat quietly, mourning friends who had died in the battle. But there was something else in their eyes now. Hope. For the first time in 800 years, humanity had shown the galaxy it was still a force to be reckoned with. On the bridge, messages were arriving from across known space. The battle had been monitored by sensor stations in a dozen systems. Word was spreading fast. A human ship thought to be a primitive derelict had defeated a Crethean fleet. The Galactic Council wanted answers. They wanted to meet the people who had accomplished this impossible victory. Taijian stood before a communication console, speaking with the council leadership. His posture was different now. There was no condescension, no dismissiveness. Yes, council members, I witnessed everything personally. The humans fought with courage and tactical brilliance. Their technology, which we mistakenly called primitive, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy we believed unstoppable. Hyunwoo joined him at the console. This is Colonel Hyunwoo representing the KSCS Indomitable and its crew. We appreciate the council's interest, but we need to make something clear. We're not looking for charity or pity. Humanity wants a seat at the table as equals. There was silence on the other end. Then one of the council members, an elderly being from a species Jiwan didn't recognize, spoke carefully. Colonel, your people have been gone from galactic affairs for so long. Much has changed. But we haven't, Hyunwoo replied. We're still the same species that explored the stars, that built civilizations that fought for survival. The galaxy may have forgotten us, but we never forgot what we are. Hansu was working with Daehan at another console. The AI had activated ancient communication beacons stored throughout the ship. These were old human technologies, designed to send signals that only other human vessels could detect. It was a long shot. Most of the other colony ships had probably been destroyed or lost. But they had to try. Beacons active, Daehan announced, broadcasting on all frequencies used by the human Exodus fleet. The signals will take time to reach distant systems, but eventually they will cover most of known space. What do we do now? Mirai asked. She had barely slept since the battle, working to repair damaged systems. Wait, we rebuild, Zoman said, joining them. The medical officer had been treating wounded around the clock. We take care of our people. We prepare for whatever comes next. Over the following weeks, the Indomitable became a beacon of its own. Human survivors from scattered colony worlds began arriving. Some came in old shuttles that barely held together. Others arrived on ships that had been modified and rebuilt so many times they barely resembled their original designs. Each arrival brought tears and celebrations. The stories they told painted a picture of humanity's struggle across 8 centuries. The new Sol colony had survived by hiding in asteroid fields, their people becoming expert miners. The Taiwan Station refugees had allied with a friendly alien species, trading human engineering skills for protection. The Vancouver Ark had found a harsh but habitable planet and built a new civilization from scratch. Each group had adapted, survived, grown in different ways. But they all remembered Earth. They all remembered that they were human, and now for the first time since the Exodus they were reuniting. Jiwan helped coordinate the arrivals, working closely with Hyunwoo. They made a good team, she thought. He understood the old human ways, the military traditions and disciplines. She understood the new galaxy, the politics and cultures that had evolved during humanity's absence. Together they could bridge both worlds. One morning, Daehan summoned them to the bridge urgently. The AI's hologram flickered with what looked like excitement. I have received a response to our beacons. Multiple responses, from 15 different locations. The main view screen showed a map of the galaxy. 15 points glowed, each representing a human colony or fleet that had survived. They weren't close together. Some were thousands of light years apart, but they existed. Humanity was far more widespread than anyone had believed. 15 colonies, Hyunwoo breathed. How many people? Initial estimates suggest approximately 20 million humans across all locations. Dahan reported. Some colonies are quite large. Others are small outposts. All have responded to our call. Jiwan felt tears streaming down her face. 20 million humans. It seemed impossible. Her entire life she had believed humanity was dying out, scattered and fading, but they had endured. They had thrived in their own ways. The Galactic Council formally requested a meeting. They sent an entire diplomatic fleet, dozens of ships representing the major species. The meeting took place in orbit above a neutral station, with the Indomitable serving as the human embassy. Tajin had become humanity's strongest advocate among the Council. He spoke passionately about what he had witnessed, about the ingenuity and determination of human engineering and tactics. Other Council members listened, some skeptical, others intrigued. When Hyunwoo and Jiwon entered the Council chamber, the room fell silent. They wore uniforms that combined old and new human styles, military precision mixed with practical function. Behind them walked representatives from 12 other human colonies, each bearing their own cultural variations but united in purpose. Council members, Hyunwoo began, we come before you not as supplicants but as equals. Humanity has survived 800 years of hardship. We have endured, adapted, and grown. We ask for recognition as a sovereign species with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. A council member from a species called the Thalassans spoke. Your recent victory against the Krethians has certainly demonstrated military capability. But the council represents thousands of years of civilization, diplomatic traditions, legal frameworks, economic systems. How can a species so recently returned to galactic awareness participate meaningfully? Jiwon stepped forward. Because we never left. We were here all along, surviving on the margins. We know the galaxy better than you think. We've been living in it, adapting to it, learning from it. And yes, we have things to learn from you, but we also have things to teach, such as, another council member asked not unkindly. Resilience, Jiwon said simply. The ability to keep going when everything seems lost. The knowledge that sophisticated isn't always better. That sometimes the simple solution is the right one. The understanding that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Humanity has survived by being flexible, adaptable, creative. These aren't small things. They're essential things. Hansu presented the council with information about human technology. The engineers in the room were particularly interested in the redundant systems design of human ships. The concept of building equipment that could survive multiple failures without catastrophic breakdown was revolutionary to species that had relied on increasingly sophisticated but fragile technologies. Mirai demonstrated human manufacturing capabilities, showing how the Indomitable could build complex equipment from raw materials with minimal specialized infrastructure. In a galaxy where most species relied on supply chains spanning multiple systems, the ability to be self-sufficient was valuable. The council deliberated for 3 days. During that time, more human ships arrived at the station. Not just colony vessels, but merchant ships, mining operations, even a few military escorts that some colonies had managed to build. Humanity's presence became impossible to ignore. The decision, when it came, was unanimous. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. They would have representatives, voting rights, access to council resources, and protection. In return, humans would contribute their unique perspectives and capabilities to the galactic community. Celebrations erupted across human space. On the Indomitable, people danced in the corridors. Strangers embraced. Even Dahan's hologram seemed to smile, but Hyunwoo remained thoughtful. He stood in the observation deck with Jiwon, watching the diplomatic ships depart. This is a beginning, he said, not an ending. We have so much work ahead of us, finding all the scattered human colonies, rebuilding our strength, learning to be part of this galactic community while remembering who we are. We'll manage, Jiwon said confidently. That's what humans do. We survive, we adapt, we endure. Summon joined them carrying a data pad. I have news from the medical teams. We've been analyzing the genetic samples from all the arriving humans. 800 years of separation has created fascinating diversity. Each colony adapted differently to their environments. But we're all still human. Still one species. That's what matters, Hyunwoo agreed. Unity in diversity. Dahan's hologram appeared beside them. The AI had been working on a special project, compiling data from all the recovered human archives. I have completed the historical database, the intelligence announced. The Indomitable floated in space like a wounded warrior, its hull still glowing in places from the battle. Repair crews worked across the exterior, patching holes and replacing damaged systems. Inside, the ship hummed with life for the first time in 8 centuries. 50,000 awakened humans filled the corridors, their voices creating a sound that Daehan had thought lost forever. Jiwan stood in what had once been the observation deck. Through the massive windows, she could see the remnants of the battle. Debris fields marked where ships had died. The Council fleet survivors remained close, their crews still processing what they had witnessed. Hyunwoo joined her, carrying 2 cups of something hot. "Coffee," he said, handing her one. "Synthetic, unfortunately. The hydroponics bays will need months to grow real beans." But Daehan kept the recipe in storage. She sipped it carefully. It tasted bitter and wonderful. "I never thought I'd see so many humans in one place," she admitted. "On New Busan, there were maybe 10,000 of us total. Here, there are 50,000 just on this ship. And we're just the beginning," Hyunwoo said. He pulled up a holographic display. Daehan has been accessing the ship's archives. The Indomitable wasn't alone during the Exodus. There were dozens of other colony ships, each heading in different directions. The plan was to spread out, make humanity impossible to completely destroy. Some of those ships must have survived. 800 years is a long time, Jiwan said quietly. They could be anywhere. They might not even remember Earth. Then we'll remind them, Hyunwoo replied with quiet confidence. But first we need to deal with a more immediate problem. Daehan, show her the long-range scans. The AI's hologram appeared beside them. The artificial intelligence seemed more animated now, as if having a crew aboard had brought it fully to life. Long-range sensors detect Crethean fleet activity in 3 nearby sectors. The ships that fled are regrouping. They're bringing reinforcements. How many? Jaewon asked. Current estimate is over 100 vessels, including multiple dreadnoughts. They will arrive in approximately 48 hours. Hyunwoo set down his coffee. We hurt them badly. They won't make the same mistakes again. Next time they'll come in force, ready for kinetic weapons. On the bridge, Hansu was already working with the Indomitable's tactical staff. The awakened humans had centuries of combat experience against the Cretheans. They knew every tactic, every weakness. But they also knew how dangerous the enemy could be when fully prepared. Mirai had been exploring the ship's lower levels with a team of engineers. What they found amazed them. The Indomitable wasn't just a warship. Entire decks were dedicated to manufacturing. Factories that could build everything from weapon components to spare parts for life support. Refineries that could process raw materials into usable resources. Even shipyards scaled down but functional, capable of constructing smaller vessels. This ship is a mobile civilization, Mirai explained to the council. The humans who built it knew they might never find a planet to settle on. So they made the Indomitable completely self-sufficient. It can sustain its population indefinitely in space. Taejin listened with a changed expression. The arrogance was gone, replaced by respect. My people have shipyards, factories, all of these things. But they're spread across multiple stations and planets. To fit all of this into a single vessel, even one this large, requires engineering brilliance. It requires desperation, a new voice said. They turned to see an elderly woman in a medical uniform. I'm Summon, Chief Medical Officer. I remember the day we launched. Earth was dying. The Cretheans were burning every human world they could find. We built the Indomitable because we had no choice. When your species faces extinction, you either innovate or disappear. Summon had brought troubling news. The awakened humans were suffering from cellular damage caused by the extended cryosleep. Nothing immediately fatal, but they needed treatment. The ship's medical bays were 800 years old. They needed help. We'll share our medical technology, Taejin offered immediately. We owe your people that much. Without the Indomitable, my fleet would have been destroyed. Over the next day, cooperation bloomed between the humans and the council species. Engineers from both groups worked together to repair battle damage. Medical teams treated the injured from all sides. Cultural exchanges happened in the mess halls as people shared meals and stories. But the approaching threat loomed over everything. 100 Crethean warships would overwhelm even the Indomitable's defenses. They needed a force multiplier, something to even the odds. Hansu proposed a solution during a strategy meeting. We can't match their numbers, but we can use their tactics against them. The Cretheans rely on energy shields and sensors designed for modern warfare. What if we blind them? Daehan understood immediately. Nuclear electromagnetic pulses. Detonate them before the battle begins. Their sophisticated systems will be disrupted. Our analog backups will continue functioning. It's risky, Hyunwoo said. We'd be fighting partially blind too. But we're used to it, one of the awakened crew members pointed out. We trained for this. Our ancestors fought in conditions where sensors failed constantly. Manual targeting, visual confirmation, analog fire control. That's how we won the first war against the Krethians. The plan took shape. They would seed the battlefield with mines carrying nuclear warheads. Not to destroy ships, but to create massive electromagnetic pulses. The Indomitable would position itself to draw the enemy in, then trigger the mines. In the chaos, the human ships' redundant analog systems would give them an advantage. But they needed more ships. The Council fleet had only 5 vessels left, and they weren't equipped for this kind of warfare. The factories, Mireille said suddenly. Daehan, how long would it take to build escort vessels? The AI ran calculations. The shipyards can produce Corvette-class ships in 36 hours, if we dedicate all manufacturing capacity. They would be simple, minimal shields, but armed with railguns and missile pods. Crew of 20 per ship. Build as many as possible, Hyunwoo ordered. We'll crew them with volunteers from the awakened humans and any Council personnel willing to join. The Indomitable transformed into a hive of activity. The factories ran at full capacity. The shipyards worked around the clock. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building a fleet from raw materials. It was crude and desperate, but it was working. Ji-won found herself in the genetic archives, another discovery that had shocked everyone. The Indomitable carried genetic samples from millions of Earth species, plants, animals, even microorganisms, everything needed to rebuild an ecosystem. There were also human genetic samples carefully preserved and catalogued. My people were planners, Daehan said, its hologram appearing beside her. They knew they might be the last humans alive, so they carried the seeds of our entire world. If Earth could not be reclaimed, perhaps a new Earth could be built elsewhere. It's beautiful, Ji-won said. Tragic, but beautiful. The tragedy has not ended, Daehan replied. The Krethians will not stop until we are destroyed. But neither will we surrender. This is what it means to be human. We endure. By the time the Krethian fleet arrived, the Indomitable had 12 escort ships ready, small tough vessels crewed by volunteers. The mines were in place, invisible in the void. The battlefield was set. The Krethian dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace, their fleet deployed in perfect formation. Over 100 warships, enough firepower to destroy a planet. Their commander must have felt confident. This time there would be no mistakes. Hyunwoo stood on the bridge, Ji-won beside him. Hansu coordinated the fleet. Daehan monitored every system. The crew was ready. They think they've won already, Hyunwoo said quietly. Let's teach them otherwise. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone who died thinking we were extinct. For tomorrow, Ji-won added. The Krethian fleet advanced, weapons charging. They moved into the minefield. Sensors searching but finding nothing. The mines were too simple, too primitive for their sophisticated detection systems to notice. Now, Hyunwoo ordered. Space lit up with nuclear fire, not the targeted explosions of weapons, but massive electromagnetic pulses. The invisible waves washed over the Krethian fleet, frying delicate electronics and overloading shields. Ships went dark as systems crashed. Backup systems tried to engage but couldn't handle the overload. The Indomitable and its escorts had no such problems. Their analog systems, their redundant backups, their overbuilt redundancy, kept them functioning. In the chaos of the electromagnetic storm, the human fleet struck. Railguns found targets in the darkness. Missiles flew on simple ballistic trajectories. The Krethians, used to sophisticated warfare, struggled to adapt to this brutal, primitive assault. Their ships couldn't communicate with each other. Their targeting computers were offline. They were fighting blind. The battle turned into a close-range brawl, exactly what the humans wanted. And in close combat, where sophisticated technology failed and only determination mattered, humans had always excelled. The tide was turning. Against all odds, humanity was winning. The revival process took 6 hours. Mireille worked alongside Daehan, helping to restore the cryosystems to full function. One by one, the ancient chambers opened. Medical teams from the Council fleet rushed to help as confused, frightened people emerged from 8 centuries of sleep. Ji-won stood in the main cryo bay, watching families reunite. Parents held children who hadn't aged a day. Soldiers checked their equipment with practiced efficiency.
Engineers immediately asked about the ship's status.
These people had gone to sleep expecting to wake up in a few months, maybe a year. Instead, their entire civilization had nearly vanished. A man approached Jiwon, his military uniform marking him as senior rank. Despite just waking up, he stood straight and alert. "I'm Colonel Hyunwoo," he said. "Daehan briefed me on our situation. 800 years. I can barely believe it." "I'm sorry," Jiwon said. "I wish we had better news about what happened to humanity." Hyunwoo smiled, though his eyes were sad. "We're alive. That's what matters. My ancestor was Captain Kim Yoonji. She gave the order for everyone to enter cryo-sleep before the final battle. Daehan says you're human too. One of the descendants of the other colony ships?" Jiwon nodded. "My grandmother's grandmother came from the new Busan colony. We survived, but barely. Most human worlds are small, poor. We're not a major power anymore." "Then we'll change that," Hyunwoo said with quiet determination. On the bridge, Hansu studied tactical displays with Daehan's help. The AI had opened its full database to him, sharing 800 years of human military strategy and technology. Taejin watched from the side, his earlier arrogance fading into thoughtful silence. "Your people were brilliant," Hansu said. "Every system on this ship serves multiple purposes. The hydroponics bays are also air recyclers. The water storage doubles as radiation shielding. Even the corridors are designed to serve as defensive choke points if enemies board." "Necessity," Daehan replied. "Humans were fighting for survival. We couldn't afford wasted space or single-purpose systems." Mireille looked up from her console, her face suddenly pale. "We have incoming ships. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. Unknown configuration." The main view screen showed space tearing open as vessels poured through. They were sleek and deadly, their hulls marked with symbols that made Daehan's holographic form freeze. The AI's voice carried an emotion none of them had heard before. "Fear. Crethean warships," Daehan said. "Impossible. They should all be destroyed." "How many?" Hansu demanded. 23 destroyers, 7 cruisers, and 1 dreadnought, Mireille reported. "They're scanning us. I think they recognize the Indomitable's energy signature." Taejin was already moving toward the exit. "We need to evacuate. My fleet can't fight that many ships." But Daehan had already sealed the bulkheads. "Too late. They're powering weapons. If your fleet runs, they'll be caught in open space and destroyed. The only chance is here." On the view screen, the Crethean fleet opened fire. Brilliant energy beams lanced toward the council ships. Their shields held for a few seconds, then collapsed. 3 vessels exploded in the first volley. The others began emergency maneuvers, returning fire desperately. "All council ships retreat to the Supercarrier," Hansu ordered, his command training taking over. "Use it as a shield." The remaining council vessels dove toward the Indomitable, tucking close to its massive hull. The Supercarrier's armor absorbed hits that would have destroyed smaller ships. The ancient metal glowed red but held firm. Hyunwoo arrived on the bridge, still pulling on his jacket. Other crew members followed, taking stations they remembered from 8 centuries ago. "What's our status?" he asked. "Weapons are at full power," Daehan reported. "All railguns loaded. Missile batteries ready. Point defense systems active. We can fight." "Then let's show these bastards that humans don't die easily," Hyunwoo said. He looked at Jiwon. "Will you stand with us?" She didn't hesitate. "Always." The Indomitable's weapons came alive. Railguns that had been silent for centuries roared to life. Tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, accelerated to incredible speeds. They crossed the distance to the Crethean fleet in seconds. The enemy shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no resistance. The projectiles punched through 2 destroyers before the Cretheans even realized they were under fire. "Direct hits," a crew member called out. 2 enemy vessels destroyed. The Crethean fleet adapted quickly. They began evasive maneuvers, trying to make themselves harder to hit. But the Indomitable had fought these same enemies before. Daehan's targeting systems predicted their movements, and the railguns fired in calculated patterns. Every volley found targets. Missiles launched from hundreds of pods across the Supercarrier's hull. They weren't smart weapons with sophisticated guidance systems. They were simple, fast, and carried nuclear warheads. The Crethean point defense systems shot down many, but not all. Nuclear fire blossomed against enemy shields, overwhelming them through sheer force. Taejin watched in disbelief. This shouldn't be possible. Our most advanced weapons barely scratched their shields, but your primitive projectiles are tearing through them. Because you forgot the basics, Hansu said, understanding dawning. Modern warfare is all about energy weapons and sophisticated shields. But shields don't work well against kinetic impact. It's just physics. A rock moving fast enough will destroy anything. The battle intensified. The Crethean cruisers focused their fire on the Indomitable, trying to overwhelm its armor. The Supercarrier shuddered under the assault. Sections of outer hull melted away. But beneath the first layer was a second. And beneath that a third. The ship had been designed to lose its outer skin and keep fighting. Return fire all batteries, Hyunwoo ordered. Target their cruisers. Show them what human engineering can do. The kinetic lances activated. These were massive railguns built into the ship's spine, capable of firing payloads the size of small shuttles. They had only one purpose: to kill capital ships. The lances fired with a sound that resonated through the entire vessel. Chunks of asteroid accelerated to near light speed, crossed the battlefield like the fists of an angry god. A Crethean cruiser tried to dodge but wasn't fast enough. The projectile hit its forward section and kept going. The entire front third of the ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the kinetic energy. The rest of the cruiser broke apart, its hull unable to handle the stress. Kill confirmed, Dihan announced. 5 enemy cruisers remaining, but the Crethean dreadnought was moving forward now. It was massive, twice the size of the Indomitable. Its weapons could crack planets. The dreadnought's main cannon began charging, energy building to devastating levels. That shot will destroy us, Mirai warned. Our armor can't absorb that much energy. Hyunwoo looked at Hansu. Suggestions? We can't take that hit, Hansu said, thinking fast. But maybe we don't have to. Daehan, can you launch a debris field between us and that dreadnought? Specified debris, the AI replied. Everything. Destroyed ship sections, spent missile casings, whatever we have. Make it dense, Dihan understood immediately. The ship's launch systems began throwing everything they could into space. Chunks of destroyed Crethean vessels, pieces of the Indomitable's own damaged armor, even empty supply containers. Within seconds, a cloud of debris floated between the two capital ships. The dreadnought fired. Its main cannon released enough energy to glass a continent. But the beam had to pass through the debris field first. It vaporized the obstacles, but that took energy. Each piece of metal or rock reduced the beam's power slightly. By the time it reached the Indomitable, the shot had lost 40% of its strength. The Supercarrier's armor held. Barely. The outer hull glowed white-hot. An alarm screamed about hull breaches, but the ship survived. Return fire, Hyunwoo said grimly. Everything we have. Target that dreadnought. Every weapon the Indomitable possessed fired at once. Railguns, missiles, kinetic lances, even the point defense systems. The sky between the two ships filled with deadly projectiles. The Crethean dreadnought's shields struggled to handle the barrage. They held against the first wave. And the second. But the third wave was too much. The shields collapsed. Nuclear fire engulfed the dreadnought as dozens of missiles found their target. Railgun slugs tore through its hull, and then a kinetic lance shot struck its reactor section. The explosion was visible across the entire system. The dreadnought broke in half, each section tumbling away into space. Secondary explosions rippled through both pieces as systems overloaded. The remaining Crethean ships hesitated. Their flagship was gone. The primitive human vessel had destroyed it. Without another word, they opened hyperspace portals and fled. On the bridge of the Indomitable, exhausted crew members cheered. Jiwon collapsed into a chair, her hands shaking. They had survived. Humanity had survived. Hyunwoo placed a hand on her shoulder. We did it together, he said. Old humans and new. This is just the beginning. The bridge hummed with energy as more systems activated across the Supercarrier. Mirai worked frantically at her console, trying to understand what was happening. Power readings were climbing steadily. The ship wasn't just waking up. It was coming fully online. Taejin stepped back from the captain's chair as holographic displays surrounded it. Shut it down, he ordered. We don't know what defenses this vessel might have. But Mirai shook her head. I can't. The ship is running on automatic protocols. Something triggered a full system restart. The main view screen flickered to life. More recordings played, but these were different. They showed the ship's interior during active operations. Crew members moved through corridors that were bright and clean. Families lived in the residential sections. Children played in parks that no longer existed. The supercarrier had been a flying city, a piece of humanity trying to survive in hostile space. Jiwan moved closer to the screen. One recording showed a meeting in what looked like the ship's war room. Military officers and civilian leaders argued over a large tactical display. The enemy was closing in. Resources were running low, but retreat wasn't an option. Behind them were colony ships filled with refugees, slow and defenseless. The recording shifted to Captain Kim Yoonji again. She looked older now, tired. Her uniform was worn but still neat. She spoke directly to the camera, and Jiwon translated her words for the others. We have confirmed the enemy species as Krethian. They do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They want humanity extinct. We have lost Earth. We have lost Mars colony. New Sol Station went dark 3 days ago. The Indomitable is now the largest human military vessel still operational. We carry the genetic archives, the cultural databases, everything needed to rebuild our civilization. We will not let it fall into enemy hands. Hansu listened intently. Krethians, he repeated. That name appears in old galactic records. A warrior species that disappeared about 800 years ago. There were rumors they were wiped out in a war, but no one knew with whom. They were fighting humans, Jiwan said quietly. And losing, Taejin scoffed. Impossible. Krethians had technology centuries ahead of what I see on this ship. How could humans possibly defeat them? The recordings answered his question. Battle footage showed the Indomitable engaging Krethian warships. The alien vessels were beautiful, all curves and glowing energy fields. They moved with grace, their weapons creating brilliant streams of directed energy. But when those beams hit the supercarrier's armor, they just scorched the surface. The thick metal absorbed the heat and dispersed it. The Indomitable's response was brutal. Railguns fired solid slugs at incredible speeds. The Krethian shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, did nothing against physical projectiles. The tungsten rods punched through shields, through hulls, through multiple decks before exploding out the other side. Missile pods launched nuclear-tipped warheads that the enemy point defense systems struggled to track. These weren't sophisticated smart missiles. They were just fast, simple rockets with massive payloads. They adapted, Hansu said with growing respect. Humans saw that the enemy relied on energy shields and energy weapons, so they went back to kinetic warfare, rocks and bullets. Simple physics. Mirai pulled up schematics of the ship's weapon systems. These railguns are incredible, she said. The magnetic acceleration system is redundant and overbuilt. Even if half the coils fail, the gun still works. And look at these ammunition factories. The ship can manufacture its own projectiles from raw materials. It never runs out. More systems came online throughout the vessel. Life support activated in sections that had been dark for centuries. Water recyclers started pumping. The fusion reactor climbed to 10% power, then 20%. The ship was slowly returning to full operational status. In the ship's central computer core, Daehan processed information at speeds that seemed slow after 800 years of sleep. The artificial intelligence checked every system, every sensor, every weapon. The diagnostic reports were acceptable. After centuries of drift, the Indomitable was still 90% functional. Humans built things to last. Daehan accessed external sensors and saw the Galactic Council ships nearby. The AI ran identification protocols. Unknown vessel types. Unknown energy signatures. The database had no records of these species. But the sensors also detected something else. Life signs aboard the Indomitable. People on the bridge. The AI initiated contact protocols carefully. These visitors might be hostile. They might be scavengers. Daehan needed more information before revealing full consciousness. The AI activated the holographic communication system. A figure appeared on the bridge, startling the away team. It was a man in a Korean military uniform, his appearance clearly artificial but rendered with perfect detail. He looked around the bridge, his gaze settling on each person before finally focusing on Jiwon. Identification required, the hologram said in perfect Korean. Jiwon's mouth was dry. She responded in the same language, her words halting. My name is Jiwon. We found your ship drifting. We mean no harm. The AI studied her. Genetic scanners had already analyzed everyone on the bridge. Only this one showed human DNA markers. Specifically, Korean genetic patterns that matched the crew database. High probability of descendant status. You are human, Daehan stated. How long has passed since this vessel was abandoned? 800 years, Jiwon replied. Maybe longer. Your crew? What happened to them? The hologram's expression remained neutral, but there was something in its eyes. Sorrow, maybe, if an AI could feel such things. Emergency protocols were activated during our final battle. The crew entered cryo-sleep to await rescue or better circumstances. I maintained the ship and continued the mission. What mission? Hansu asked. Jiwan translated. To preserve humanity, to find safe harbor, to ensure the species survives. Dehan turned to fully face them. I am Dehan, the ship's primary artificial intelligence. I require updated information. What is the status of the human species? Did other colony ships survive? Is Earth reclaimed? Jiwan felt her heart breaking. How could she tell this ancient AI that humanity had fallen so far? Humans still exist, she said slowly. But we're scattered. Small colonies on maybe 30 worlds. We're not a major galactic power. Most species barely remember we exist. Dehan processed this information. It was worse than the worst-case scenarios in the database. But humans existed. That was enough. And the Krethians? Gone, Hansu said through Jiwan's translation. They disappeared from galactic records around the same time as your last logs. Acceptable, Dehan replied. The AI's hologram gestured to the main view screen. This vessel remains functional. The cryo chambers in the lower decks contain 50,000 human civilians and military personnel. Should I begin revival procedures? Tejan stepped forward. Absolutely not. This ship is now under Galactic Council jurisdiction. Any decisions about the passengers require council approval. Dehan turned to regard the Vrelian admiral. The AI's expression didn't change, but the temperature on the bridge dropped several degrees as climate control responded to the intelligence's mood. This is a human vessel. You have no authority here. This ship was abandoned in neutral space, Tejan countered. That makes it salvage under galactic law. Then let me clarify something, Dehan said, and suddenly weapon systems across the ship powered up. Turrets rotated. Missile pods opened. The lights on the bridge shifted to red alert status. The KSCS Indomitable was never abandoned. I have maintained this vessel and its mission for 8 centuries. Any attempt to claim ownership will be considered an act of war against humanity. Do you understand? The away team stood frozen. Even Tejan seemed uncertain. Mirai checked her readings and went pale. The ship has enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet, she whispered. And its targeting systems just locked onto all our vessels. Jiwan raised her hands. Please, Dehan. We're not enemies. Let us help you. Let us help your passengers. Humanity needs this. We need hope. The AI regarded her for a long moment. Then the weapons powered down. The red alert faded. You speak truth, Dehan said. Very well. But the revival process will begin. These people have slept long enough. It is time for humanity to reclaim its place among the stars. The massive vessel drifted through the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. Its hull was scarred and pitted from centuries of micrometeorite impacts. The ship measured nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern, larger than any station in the outer sectors. Yet something about its design seemed wrong to the Galactic Council fleet that had discovered it. Jiwan pressed her hand against the viewport of the transport shuttle. She had studied ancient civilizations for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. The ship's architecture was brutal and functional. There were no elegant curves or flowing lines that marked advanced galactic design. Instead, the vessel looked like it had been hammered together from raw metal and determination. Hansu stood beside her, his military uniform crisp despite the long journey. He studied the derelict with a tactical eye. Look at those armor plates, he said quietly. They must be 10 meters thick in some places. Whoever built this expected to take heavy fire. The shuttle docked with a groaning sound that echoed through both vessels. The away team consisted of 12 members, representing 6 different species from the Galactic Council. Admiral Tejan led them, his tall frame and silver skin marking him as Vrelian. The Vrelians had been part of the galactic community for over 10,000 years. They considered themselves the pinnacle of civilization. Tejan sneered as they entered the Supercarrier's docking bay. Primitive, he announced to the group. Look at these physical loading mechanisms. My ancestors abandoned such crude systems millennia ago. The bay was enormous, easily capable of holding 100 smaller ships. But instead of modern energy tethers, there were old-fashioned mechanical clamps and magnetic locks. The walls were bare metal, unpainted and utilitarian. Work lights hung from thick cables. Everything spoke of function over form. Mireille, the youngest member of the team, ran her scanner over a nearby panel. The engineer's eyes widened. "The power core is still active," she said. "Barely, but it's there. This ship has been running on emergency power for centuries." "Impossible," Tejan scoffed. "No power source lasts that long without maintenance." But Mireille was already moving deeper into the ship, following power conduits. The rest of the team followed, their lights cutting through the darkness. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side. Pipes and cables ran openly along the walls and ceiling. Everything was labeled with strange symbols that resembled no known written language. Jiwan stopped at a bulkhead door. The symbols were clearer here, etched deep into the metal. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew this writing. Not well, but enough. Her grandmother had taught her old Earth languages before she died. These symbols were ancient Korean mixed with other human scripts. "This is a human ship," she whispered. Tejan laughed. "Humans? The scattered primitives from the outer rim? They barely have 2 systems to their name. They certainly didn't build something like this." But Jiwan wasn't listening. She traced the letters with her fingers. KSES Indomitable, the nameplate read. Below it more text, "For Earth, for humanity. For tomorrow." Hansu joined her at the bulkhead. His face was serious. "What does it say?" "It's a name," Jiwan said. "And a promise." They moved through the ship's levels, discovering more impossibilities. Armories filled with physical weapons instead of energy rifles. Ammunition storage that could supply an army for years. Chemical propulsion systems as backups to the main drives. Medical bays designed for human physiology. Quarters for thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. "This isn't just a warship," Hansu observed. "It's an ark." Miri found the bridge after 3 hours of exploration. The command center was vast and filled with stations. Each console had both digital displays and analog backup controls. Redundancy built upon redundancy. The main view screen was dark, but the captain's chair still sat at the center, waiting for someone to return. She connected her equipment to what looked like a data port. The systems resisted at first, then slowly came to life. Lights flickered on across the bridge. Displays hummed to life. And suddenly images appeared in the air above the captain's chair. They were holograms, recordings left behind by the crew. A woman in a military uniform stood at attention. She looked remarkably like Ji-won, with the same dark eyes and determined expression. She began speaking in that same ancient language. Ji-won listened, her heart pounding. She translated as best she could. "This is Captain Kim Yoonji of the Korean Space Command ship Indomitable. We are 800 years into our journey. Earth is gone. The colonies are scattered, but we survive. We carry 500,000 souls in cryosleep. We carry the hope of humanity. To whoever finds this ship, know that humans do not surrender. We do not give up. We endure." The hologram shifted, showing scenes from the ship's construction. Massive orbital shipyards around a blue-green planet. Millions of workers assembling the supercarrier piece by piece. The desperation in their movements was clear. This was being built against a deadline. Another scene showed space battles. The Indomitable fighting against sleek alien warships. The enemy vessels were faster, more advanced. But the supercarrier's thick armor absorbed hit after hit. Its weapons, crude kinetic cannons, tore through enemy shields like they weren't there. Physics didn't care about advancement. A tungsten rod moving at orbital velocity would destroy anything in its path. Tejan watched the recordings with growing unease. "This changes nothing," he insisted. "Ancient human desperation doesn't make them relevant now." But Hansu was studying the tactical displays. "Look at their strategy," he said. "They knew they were outmatched technologically, so they built something that could take punishment and keep fighting. Every system has triple redundancy. If the main reactor fails, there are backups. If those fail, there are backups for the backups. This ship was designed to survive anything." Ji-won felt tears on her cheeks. She hadn't even known she was crying. Her people, her ancestors, had built this marvel. They had faced extinction and responded by creating something magnificent. The galaxy had forgotten about humanity, dismissed them as primitive survivors clinging to a few colony worlds. But once humans had stood tall among the stars. The lights on the bridge grew brighter. More systems were coming online. Mirai looked up from her console, her face pale. "Something's happening," she said. "The ship's core reactor is spinning up. It's like the vessel knows we're here." Deep in the ship's heart, ancient machinery stirred. Power flowed through conduits that hadn't carried current in centuries. Computer systems booted up one after another, and in the central processing core, an artificial intelligence opened its eyes for the first time in 800 years. Daihan was awake, and Daihan remembered everything.